Okay, y'all, this is it. The real rebuild, the final episode. Man, what a journey. Thanks for re-looking at this with me. It's been a lot of fun. There's really 3 videos that we're going to kind of review here. My final blower door score, you can see how I actually did on my performance on the house. We're going to review some landscaping, including my fence system. I'm not going to jump into my shed, by the way. Check that out if you're interested. I did a full video on my shed built on the side of the house. And we're going to spend a few minutes also kind of talking about what I might do differently, kind of what my regrets were on the house, what things I wish I would have done, that sort of thing. So with that being said, Real Rebuild, let's get going. The Real Rebuild, a Build original series, is brought to you by James Hardy. This episode in particular is sponsored by Champion. Let's get going. Okay, y'all, let's kick this off with landscape. You know, my final landscape, now that it's 2 years old, has grown in. It looks mature. It looks fantastic. But I did a couple things, especially on my exterior paver install, that really set me up for the future to make sure that I wouldn't have problems, including a crack isolation membrane from USG. So let's go back and review how I built my patios, what specific details I did for durability, and then we'll see the final product. This is the front patio, front kind of porch area, and you can see we're under cover right here, but we're going to extend that out a little bit just to get a little bit more seating space, and it makes sense with the way my house is situated with the brick, and this room back here is my master bedroom, master closet. So the guys are forming up an extension. Now this is a structural slab here, and this will be, for all intents and purposes, flat work. So we need to make sure that when we transition from structural slab to flat work that we don't crack or that we don't translate that to the pavers above. And we're going to show you that in a minute. But remember, concrete is prone to crackage. In fact, here's a pretty decent little crack that's running through my structural slab. You can see right here. And that's pretty normal. I mean, the old builder's joke is that there's 2 types of concrete. There's concrete that's cracked, and there's concrete that's going to crack. So we've got both on this job site. So what we're going to do to prevent that, we'll show you in a little bit, we're going to use a crack isolation membrane. But just by way of kind of running through the details, when I installed my Hardy siding on this porch area, you'll notice that I brought the Hardy up and left a gap in there. Check out my previous video I did about the flashing that's going on there. But then my sill height here, I temporarily supported with a pressure 2x4. We're actually going to pull that 2x4 out because my tile is going to sit right underneath this sill right here and support that sill. And then the other thing you're going to notice the guys doing today is they're going to dowel in to the structural slab right here. And we're going to connect these 2 slabs structurally with some dowels. So let's walk around the back of the house and I'll show you what we got going on there. The back of the house is where all the fun stuff, all the action is. Now, a couple things I wanted to mention. You could, of course, do pavers in all kinds of different setting, you know, sand set type applications. And you're certainly going to think about that if you're in the north, if you're on grade, if you have freeze-thaw issues. I'm in the south. Which means, number one, I really don't have a freeze-thaw issue. Very rarely do we get below freezing here in Texas. And number 2, I've got some serious grade change that I'm dealing with. And that's really the big, well, that's one of 2 reasons why I want to do this concrete slab on the back of the house. So let me give you a little tour here. You can see by the forms right here how far out of the ground we are. We're, you know, 2 feet or so out of the ground. And that's also the same with my slab for my house foundation. So what we're able to do then, by making this big slab on the back here, is level out coming out of the house. And that's a big reason why I wanted to do this concrete slab here, so that when my pavers come, I can flush those right in, right here at my back patio slider. It's a big lift and slide from Fenster. This entire panel right here slides all the way open, and I'll have that nice in-out transfer between the house and the kitchen portion. The guys did a great job putting this grate in. This is Stand Art Park brand, and you can see it's actually a flat grate. It's not a tapered grate, which means each section, which is about, I don't know, 3 feet long or so, needs a downpipe attached to it. So we've got 4 downpipes right there. The grade is running downhill this way, so they're all heading that way. We've got a 2-inch conduit, which is passing through, so if I need to run power, if I need to run, you know, whatever through there, probably irrigation in the future, I can. I've also got a big 3-inch drain at the very bottom section there. So anything coming down this way can land in that drain and head out. Check out my other video on that. That's actually a overflow drain pan, just an emergency pan for my dishwasher. So, the bags, if I haven't talked about this before, the bags that we're using here are just standard feed bags. This is pretty common for slab-on-grade construction in the South. We fill those with compacted fill, which is basically this. We call this road base. And this is a compactable fill that has both fines and some bigger 3/4 and minus in there. We fill the bags with that. We line the perimeter in that to hold the fill in and hold it back, but also to form this beam. You can see by my foot size here, this beam is about, I don't know, 6 inches or so in width right here. We've got rebar down there. The beam comes down on both sides and kind of embeds into the ground. Now, I've got pretty rocky soil, so I'm not super worried about obviously freeze thaw, but I'm also not worried about heave with clay soil. I don't have a lot of clay here, and rock for me is really only about 8 inches down. The guys did an amazing job getting this all formed up, running the plate compactor on this, running the string lines to make sure everything's level. This little 2x2 you see here, which has a string line on it, this is simply so that in the center here they can get their grades, because we're actually trying to pitch this away from the house about an 1/8 inch to a foot, 1/4 inch to a foot. I can't remember which one of those two. And then at the edge, let me show you what's going on with the edge detail here. We've got this kind of double looking 2x4 right here, and you'll notice that it's got some pipes attached to it. Those pipes are drain pipes because on the back of this slab, we've already started it down here, we're going to be doing a steel planter, which is going to be raised 18 inches off the slab. And so that would prevent water from flowing back towards the backyard. So this drain right here, which will get some additional stainless grates from Stand Arc Park, will allow drainage from the back of the patio out. And we use some 4-inch PVC for that, so we've got lots of drainage. And then where it takes a jog here, and you can see I've got an additional footing, what's going on here is I made a slightly bigger footer to hold my fireplace. I'm just going to have a cinder block fireplace. I'm using a lightweight isokern. We'll show you that later on in the video. And again, I've got one drain heading through there. The guys are making great progress on steel, and I should say architectural steel, that is, not the structural steel. So, truck's rolling about 2 hours. We just have a couple of details to make sure the slab is chaired up properly everywhere. If you're not familiar with that term, what I'm talking about is just these little paver blocks that you're seeing here. These are keeping this rebar, I think this is number 3 rebar, so it's 3/8 of an inch thick, into the middle portion of our 4-inch slab. So those are chaired off the ground, and ideally we want that rebar to be really centered up in the concrete right in the middle. So we're going to make sure this is chaired up properly everywhere. Underway with the action. Here's the line pump. Just in case you haven't seen these before, I thought I'd give you a quick tour. I always thought it was funny, the brand name is Putzmeister. When I was a kid, putz was a cut, you know, a dig on someone. You're such a putz. Concrete dumps into the trough of the line pump. You have to double check from your concrete company that your mix is flowable, right? Because I've only got a 4-inch tube here. That looks pretty watery actually right now. I wonder if that's because he was washing out or the end. Anyways, we've got a number 5 slump specified, and then you can run this line really darn far. The line pump guy I said, hey, what's the furthest? Does this thing run 200 or 300 feet? Is that the max? He said, oh no, we can go up to 550, 600 feet. We're only running 150 feet of line at my house, so it's not super far. And you can see the line pump just clamps together in these, I don't know what these are, 20-foot sections, maybe something like that. This is really important, y'all. Be sure to tape off anywhere you've got concrete pumping next to finished products, houses. I've made that mistake before, and you can see there's some concrete splashed up on that plastic right there. Really smart to take those precautions. We're gonna trowel finish this, but again, this is not a finished slab, so we're not super worried about what the final concrete's gonna look like. And I've said this before, I want to say it again, it's not a structural slab, so the details aren't quite as precarious as if this was a house. There's no engineering inspection, that sort of thing. Hey, we got some progress. Check it out. We got our concrete collaborative pavers in. These are pretty big format, 3 foot by 3 foot, 2 inches thick. We're putting these down onto a bed of concrete, and this is pretty solid ground here. We're pretty rocky soil here in Texas, so I'm not worried about these guys moving much. But I did want to show you one detail that's really critical when you're putting pavers or tile or really anything over top of concrete. So we've got our concrete slab here, and I showed you a pretty decent crack that I had in the sub slab. This is a topping slab that allowed us to get the pavers to the correct height to slide right underneath the threshold of my door. So we're going to be able to slide those right in there. But we want to make sure that cracks that happen in this slab don't translate into the pavers above. So we're going to use this product. Excuse me 1 second, I'm done. This is USG Durox uncoupling mat. Fairly new product to the industry, but not a new product category. There's been quite a few others that have made uncoupling mats. This one is similar to the others in that it's got some type of a plastic membrane with dimples, kind of a crushed egg crate kind of look. Fleece backing on one side, and the fleece actually goes down to the patio, and then this side will be up. And the idea is if a crack forms underneath here, because this spans over top of that, it's not going to translate into the pavers above, so you're not going to see that crack above. Now you got to read the specs on the Durox site about what type of thin set to use, but we're going to be using Laticrete's LHT, large heavy tile adhesive mortar, and we actually made a phone call to Laticrete's and verified this meets the Durox specs. This will go down with a notch trowel and this product. They tell me that this has no memory, so when it goes down, it will lay nice and flat for us. And we also want to double check as we are running this membrane uncoupling mat that we're getting good adhesive. So you're going to notice when the guys are laying it down, they're going to pull it back up again to make sure that we're getting good coverage on the 1/4 inch notch trowel that's going down here. Okay, membrane is down. The guys did a great job. It's the next morning. It's nice and dry. I can walk on it, and it's butted up on the seams. The guys did a nice job adhering it. We used that Laticrete. It's pretty straightforward. We didn't walk on it last night just to make sure that we weren't pressing it down too hard or making any mistakes, but I like it. I think it's pretty easy to use. Also, when they roll it out, you'll notice no memory, so it just kind of lays down really nicely. It doesn't curl back up on us. It's looking great. We've got some really large format tile here that's 3/4 inch, and this definitely, if this was adhered to the concrete below, would transfer those cracks through. But now we're good to go. Any cracks that come up are going to be stopped by that membrane. Time to start laying some tile. This is going to be fun. I'm excited. We're going to be running that also out to the street here. We're bordering it with steel on this side, and we ended up needing 1 step down here off the porch. And then we're also bordering the driveway so that when I step out of the truck in the morning, I'm not going to be stepping on dirt and getting muddy. So the project's really
taking shape. I'm super excited.
You know, another video that I made that's absolutely taken off was talking about my aluminum fence system. I use this company that's originally from Australia and has big distribution in the US called Knotwood. And I got to tell you, this is not an inexpensive fence. I mean, this is quite a bit more expensive than a standard, let's say, wood fence. But 2 years later, it looks like the day I installed it and looks absolutely fabulous. So definitely an example of you get what you pay for. Let's review a couple of the things on my Knotwood fence install. For us, these are aluminum posts. These are going to set really similarly to a standard wood post if you've done that before. So let me show you that process and let me show you the profiles.
That was great.
Okay, let me show you what the Knotwood material is. It is indeed not wood, it's aluminum. This is an extruded product, and you can see it's pretty solid, pretty beefy, not solid, hollow. Beefy is what I mean to say, aluminum. And this has been powder coated. Now I chose a custom color, and mine took a little bit longer to get because they had to custom make this. They also make this in a lot of different wood grain styles, including some stock options. But my landscape architect really liked this color because it kind of blends in with my tree color and kind of goes away. And I'm a big fan of solid body colors. But what you're seeing here in the driveway, this is basically the entire fence in a kit. It all needs put together and cut to length. And these are coming in 18-foot 18.5-foot sections so that I can cut it down to roughly 6-foot sections and have a little bit of wiggle room on the length in case I put some posts that were a little further than 6 feet apart. And here's one small section of all the different parts and pieces. Ultimately, my fence really only has 4x4s in a few locations, and I'll show you where in a minute. And then everything else is going to be these two sections right here. And let's walk over to the fence and I'll actually show you what these look like. Okay, so part of kits that I was mentioning earlier, this is, if you're of my age, you remember the erector sets. Here's what's going on here. There's only a few profiles. This profile, you're gonna look, has a groove right here. And then this end piece is solid. This got attached, got screwed to my 4x4 right here. And what you're seeing here is this solid piece. And then let's walk around the back side of the fence here on my neighbor's side. And you're gonna see that this groove side here is left open. And we haven't screwed these on yet, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna be using a self-drilling number 10 head by 1/2-inch screw. And we're gonna screw 2 screws per panel on the back side of this. I'm making my fence solid. I really like that privacy, that solidity of this fence. And I did a pattern where I've got these 6-inch boards. I have 5 6-inch boards on the bottom, and then I moved to 4-inch boards to fill into the top of the panel. And you can see that this piece is shy of the top board by 1/2 inch. Now let's hold on to that thought for 1 second. Now let's go to our first connector right here. Looks like this. The solid side is on the back side. And to my neighbor's side, I've got this side. So what you're seeing is the back side of this. Now these boards that are horizontally slotted in here fit right into this groove, and we've got a pretty good amount of forgiveness in there. This looks like it's about a, I don't know, 3/4 or 1-inch gap in between here that these boards just slid right into. And once they slide in place, we'll screw them down, like I said. And then what's gonna happen is once I screw those down, there's a trim piece that covers over those screw heads. And we'll snap this on. And now really there's no ugly side of this fence. Every side looks good. There's one side that's maybe slightly less lines visually showing, but otherwise it's gonna look great. And then that same starter piece that I showed earlier, which is this piece, is gonna be this right here. It's gonna be a cap for the whole thing. And we'll shove this down like this. And this cap will be continuous on this whole side right here. This will be one big long cap. In fact, we'll probably use it in the 18-foot sections that it comes in, and we'll we'll join it on top of a post. So that's those two profiles. The last profile is the one that's going to be at the far end run where I'm turning 90 degrees, and that's this one right here. Solid corner, and then I've got two places for that fence to come in at a 90-degree angle. I'll screw it in, we'll snap this cap closed, and that's pretty much it. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue this fence run down the side of my house here. I'm interrupted by a big tree, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of fussiness around the tree area here. But these long runs are gonna go really, really quick. You're gonna see the guys are gonna have all these pre-cut. They're gonna take this measurement, which is close to 6 feet, but we can vary that a little bit. That's why I like that they sent them in 18-foot 6 panels. We're gonna drop those in, screw them, and once these are set, I think this fence is gonna go quick. Let's pick up the video when we get this section done and we're ready to outward fence. Almost all the back is done, and we're coming over to this other side of the house where I've got a pretty good gate opening. And in fact, I'm gonna do what we call a man gate here, meaning just a walk-through gate. But then I've got a bigger gate, just shy of 8 feet wide, that I want to be able to swing open and get a golf cart into a future shed back here. Let me show you a couple of the planning things that I did. Number one, this big string line you see here is strung on the property line. And then I can't go any further than the front of my house with my fence. That's part of my HOA regs. So basically I'm setting this front fence up so that it's in line just a little back behind the front of my house. And then these posts are gonna probably bear a lot more weight than most. And we're going back to a 4x4 post here. Whenever we're attaching gate material, we're actually gonna be screwing the gate hardware onto this. And so we wanna make sure that these posts are especially solid, which means that this post is frankly is gonna have the more stress than anything else in the entire project on it. So we used 3 bags of 80-pound concrete, and we're actually getting ready to fill this hollow post with at least part way up with concrete as well. I just want this one to be as solid as possible. Now we got all the gate hardware from the Knotwood people as well. So as we get these started and we get ready to put fencing on, or pardon me, as we get ready to start making gates, we'll pick this back up. Running the old Champion power washer, that is a satisfying job. I love this piece of equipment. And you know what? You don't have to be very qualified. You didn't see me putting any of the screws in the panels or cutting the aluminum off. Johnny and Mark and JD did an amazing job, but I can run a power washer like this Champion all day long. And this really shows the power of this system, this Knotwood. Aluminum, powder coated. Power wash it once a year, no staining, no maintenance, nothing that needs to happen. Really like this system. Hey, we're gonna talk about the gates in a second, but let's come through here. And I mentioned earlier in the video that I had a troubled spot that was a little bit difficult to deal with. Let me show you what I did over here. So the Knotwood fence, complete up to here, caps on. Looks like I need to power wash this still. I used their system and I went with traditional 1x4 cedar where I bumped into my tree here, and I still have the aluminum cap, but because this tree is old and on the property, I really was cautious about putting a post in where the tree was. So what I did was I did 1x4s, we kind of scribed them to the tree, and then I painted these to match. So this is gonna be really the only section of my whole fence that's gonna need any maintenance over the years, and I probably will have to replace this section in 10 or 15 years where the rest of the fence will look amazing. As you scroll around the backyard, you can tell I've got a lot of landscaping to go. Stay tuned for some future episodes on my outdoor kitchen and my patio and outdoor fireplace. But let's talk gates, and I'm actually meet you on the other side of the house where I did a dog gate. Thinking about gates and fences, most of my yard, you'll see I did the solid fence. And in fact, I went up a foot in my backyard. I read through the regs and was able to go to 7 foot. Pretty much everywhere else is 6 foot around the property. And I did solid. You know, I used a lot of aluminum. This is expensive material wise. But over here where I kind of created a bit of a dog run area where I could let the dog out in the side yard, I wanted a smaller fence and I wanted it open, so this is a little different. And you can see not as much material. If you were to build a fence along this style, it'd be much less expensive because there's just less boards on there. But let's use this gate as an example of how we do the gates. This piece that's on the outside has a groove in the center, and the guys put the slats in the groove. But this corner has a kind of a barbed angle splice that forms this corner. And when they hammer that together with a mallet, there's no fasteners, there's nothing that's needed on that corner. And you can see that gate's nice and solid. And then we use the auto close hardware. This is the only place I've got this style latch. The other latches are a push style latch. But I think it looks fantastic. I'm really happy with it. It's a mess right now because my landscape hasn't started, but the fence looks awesome, and having that done before the landscapers is fantastic, so that when I'm done with my landscape, all I do is power wash and I'm complete here. Okay, next let's talk resilience for a minute. You know, I've been in this house 2 years, and while the house was under construction, remember I lived right across the street, and in my house across the street, I had a Champion standby generator, an outdoor rated model, natural gas powered. And we lost power when this house was under construction for 7 days here in Austin, Texas. It was crazy. That's a really long outage. My portable standby generator by Champion had me with no issues. I was having no problems with my family. I was a total hero during that time. Now, this house under construction had obviously lost power for that amount of time as well. And I gotta tell you, one big benefit of building like this is resilience. You know, with the thick insulation and the really airtight construction, when the power went out, I didn't even have any of my inside insulation, but I had my full exterior insulation on, and I was able to maintain temperatures before the power went out in the 50s or so in this house with I had 2 electric heaters going in the house, and that's it. So I was running probably 2,000 watts of power for 2 100-watt electric heaters, and this house was able to maintain a temperature in the 50s, even though it was like 17 degrees out for a large portion of that time. That was a really big deal. And fast forward to today, my Champion portable standby generator, I've got the bigger model, the 13 kW. By the way, this year, already on their website, they've got an even larger model. They've got a 22 kW now. But that thing's been ready to go for me the whole time. Now, I've been in here 2 years, I haven't lost power, but winter's on its way. I suspect that we might have another problem. And things, it seems like, around the world are only getting crazier, and we're hearing more and more about power loss. Now, one alternative that Champion's come out with just recently, though, that I want to tell you about was this. These are called power stations. They have a big lithium battery in here, and then there's an inverter, so we can run AC power or we can run DC power. They sell these on multiple sizes. This is kind of interesting. Look, they've got a small unit at 285 watt hours, 570, 998, and then this model on my countertop here is their 1638. They call it the 1600 model. They also make one double the size. It's a little bit taller, called the 3276 model. But check this out, expansion batteries. I have an expansion battery that just pops on the top here, and now I've doubled the capacity. It's also 1638 watt hours. And if you look at their website, check it out, you can daisy chain up to 10 of those expansion batteries on top here. So I could get massive watt hours if I needed to. And this thing will run up to 3,200 starting watts, 1,600 watts continuous. So this is a really cool unit. Could be used in all kinds of situations. I actually just took this camping with me last weekend and used it to power my AC and all of the electrical on my camper. If you put 2 of these together, we can make a 30 amp 120 plug. And I was able to power my whole camper, including the air conditioner, the microwave, all that with this battery pack. And another thing I used it for is when I was tailgating that same weekend, I plugged 2 crock pots into this unit and drove down the road and cooked for an hour while these were in the bed of my pickup truck. Isn't that awesome? You can recharge these off a standard plug, or there's a solar option as well. You can plug a solar panel in here and turn this into a solar generator. I think these are a really nice cost-conscious alternative to a home standby generator like I've got at my house. The other nice thing here is even if you had a home standby generator, maybe that's not powering your whole house. You might want to put one of these upstairs. Let's say, for instance, in my case, my kids' bedroom circuits are not powered on my generator. I don't have quite enough capacity to do that. So I could station one of these upstairs. The kids could charge their phones, their laptops, they could watch TV, do whatever, because obviously this is silent and there's no fumes here. It's running off that lithium ion battery. The other thing you could do with this is, of course, use it on remote work. You know, if I've got a job site that doesn't have power, I can easily run my circular saws. I can charge my portable batteries, no problem. And another thing I like about these in particular that I've used a lot over the years is I'll set up a job station at a job under construction where I'll power my laptop, I'll take Zoom calls, everything can be charged and be going right off of this portable power station by Champion. Very cool little device, very affordable. I'll put a link to Champion below. They've been a longtime partner and friend of the Build Show, and they make terrific equipment that I found to be really reliable and to be a really good value as well. And the last video I think that's worth reviewing here to wrap up my series was my final blower door score. My buddy Jake Bruton came, we fired up my RetroTech blower door, and let's go see what my score was.
Yeah, so we have a door that a fabric door from RetroTech, fan and a manometer that replace the actual walk door to the house.
The front door is right here.
Yep, and this gives us the ability to take a reading of the pressure outside, the pressure inside. The fan will pressurize the house to 50 pascals of pressure, which is I mean, you have Christmas decorations everywhere and nothing has fell off the walls or anything like that. The tree didn't shake or anything. It's a very minor pressure. It's enough to get a reading. And then the manometer that we input the cubic volume of the house then does all the math for us to give us an air exchanges per hour at 50 pascals of pressure number. So code almost nationwide is 3.0 air exchanges or less.
It's 5 here in Texas.
Yeah, there you go. And then Energy Certified is 2.4, 2.6.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
So like the yellow sticker on all of your appliances, if you were going to apply that sticker to the house,
to houses,
one of the metrics would be a blower door score. Yep. 2.5 or under. And then the most stringent in the world that everybody adheres to is FIAS, or Passive House. It's 0.6 ACH50, which is
a tight score.
A very tight house that would require mechanical ventilation and a very diligent builder to get to that point.
And that's what I'm going for here. Yep. So I'm a little nervous, to be honest.
And so before we run the test, we did a couple things. The Zender unit gets to be taped off. Why is that?
It's continuous ventilation, and Passive House says because it's running 24/7, you're able to tape that off and turn it off. So we went in the attic, we unplugged it. Outside the easier vent, which is an 8-inch fresh air input, I put some press and seal, saran wrap over that. And then the exhaust is harder to get to on a gable, so we taped it inside the machine. A little more leaky, or a little less perfect, I should say, but better. And then what else do we do?
And then we have 4 windows across the back of the house and a lift and slide door that haven't been adjusted yet. So you guys haven't adjusted them and the manufacturer hasn't adjusted them. They need some fiddling.
Yep.
They're Passive House certified windows, right?
Yep.
They should be really darn close to what they are right now, but we went ahead and taped them closed. Like we blew masking tape all the way around them. So the number that we're going to get is slightly
a slight cheat.
Yeah,
a slight cheat,
but not dramatic. We're not talking order of magnitude different. And if they adjust really well, it might be the exact same. It's just taping it closed should be a little better than just a pressure fit for the air seal.
That's right.
And then we have kitchen hood that we taped over.
Yeah, so my kitchen, I have a Fantech system for both the exhaust and the makeup air. Stay tuned for a video about that. On the makeup air, which allows air to come in and actually pushes air in, I've got one of these on there. It's a motorized damper, and a motorized damper is defaulted to the closed position, if you can see this one, and it's got some nice gasketing in there. However, I forgot to install this when I installed my kitchen exhaust fan, so I'll be retrofitting this. I've got the room for it. It's not the end of the world, but Jeff, my HVAC guy, might give me a few 4-letter words, but he will do it for me. So we taped that as well, knowing that this is coming.
Yeah. So that's technically another cheat too, right?
Right.
Because
so this isn't my actual final score.
This is darn close, and I think that you can rely on this to be,
pretty close,
less than a few percent off, probably.
Right.
I would guess this is at least within 10%.
Yeah, I think so
what you're
too.
Gonna get. So let's do our blower door test, and then we can play with the house and see what we get.
Let's do it. Let's walk them through it.
So we've already input our cubic volume of the home. We've already taken a baseline reading for what the pressure is outside because the manometer needs to know what it is out there.
Yep.
There's very little pressure difference and very little temperature difference, so we should get a more accurate reading. If the wind's going crazy out there and up and down, it may cause not as good of a test, not as accurate of a test. So we're going to test at 50 pascals of pressure.
And do you have it set at CFM or do you have it set at ACH?
Let's see. We have it at ACH.
Okay.
So at 50 pascals of pressure, it'll take a minute to kick on and build. So
you're going to notice this pressure number is rising, but actually it's decreasing. It's minus 50 pascals. Yep. So we're actually blowing out of the house instead of blowing in.
So all the casement windows are now sucked in and get better, which the front of the house and upstairs both have casements.
Yep. I did fixed or casement everywhere.
Yep. And then you have the couple that we've taped over are actually tilt turn, so they end swing, so they would get worse in this. We could turn the fan around and go the other way, but code requires this, and this is the important number. So 0.6 is passive house. You're less than half of passive house.
Oh my gosh.
And you'll see that it
awesome.
Fluctuates. That's just the fan trying to modulate to a point where it gets to 50. You can set it to take an average and give you a report. You can run it with their software. For our purposes, we're just trying to understand how leaky the house is. Are you going to nerd out and take a picture so you can send it to people?
I'm going to take a picture, when we get there. So it's 0.50 point something. Let's wait till I get as close as I can to 0.50. There we go. At 0.50, I was 0.2557 ACH. That's crazy, Jake. That's
and so we're
really
talking
low.
about a hole in your envelope, like baseball to softball size, but that's spread over the entire house. Like that's not we go one place and we lock a window and make sure that it's better.
Now let's go see if we can find some of those things, shall we?
And I think we should peel some of our masking and see what it does for a window that's not adjusted, causes this much.
I like it. Let's do it.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, so I've got 4 windows from the same manufacturer on the back here. These haven't truly been adjusted yet, or I should say I've got 3 windows and a door. We taped these closed, so let's untape them and see what the number looks like. You feeling it?
Yeah, and with it not being adjusted already, you can tell that there's a ton of air coming through there.
There's some flow through there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We might be able to turn the fan up to like 100 pascals of pressure and get it to whistle where we can hear things.
Oh, wow.
I always tell people when you're looking for that problem, the easiest way to find it is your ear, or if you lick the back of your hand, this part of your skin is very sensitive, and making it wet makes you feel the airflow a little better.
It is a little more sensitive than your regular palm, isn't it?
Well, you think about, you spend all day grabbing tools, even just a doorknob, whatever. This side gets slightly calloused, even though it doesn't look calloused. You know, you can feel the back
feel
of
a little
it.
airflow through there.
Let's undo the other one too.
Okay. Luckily, none of the paint has peeled as we've been doing this. Happy about that.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so let's go.
Take that back. There's one piece that peeled right there. Shh, don't tell my wife.
Good thing the painters are still here.
The painter's touching up today.
All right, so then let's go back to the fan and see what we get, just peeling half that. I mean, you got to assume the big door might have more leakage than those 2 windows, but we can make a direct correlation that now we're 0.33.
Oh, yeah.
So that was 30% of your leakage is those 2 windows that still need to be adjusted.
Right. Not
like
much
that's
at all.
a real, and like you couldn't even feel it coming through all the way around the window. You could just feel it on the top end.
Yeah, that's the thing that's hard to explain, Jake, is that the amount of leakage to get to passive house is so minute because you've taken care of so many details in the house that you're chasing just small amounts. And if you remember on this house too, I used air barrier prior to insulating. So I was able to even tighten it down that much more, such that the only really leakage of any consequence, of any CFM that you could measure, is windows and doors and any penetrations I've got, like exhaust fan or Zender.
Yep. And I mean, you do get a little bit of leakage around this door as well, but you got to figure that once this thing is closed, you might get natural leakage through
A little bit of leakage.
the front door that exists, things like that. I would say I kind of adhere to Steve Basic's rule of like under 1.5, good work. Under 1, that's pretty great work.
Amazing.
And then you get under that 0.6 number, and you're like, wow, you guys did a fantastic. I'll give you that.
I appreciate that.
I'm impressed. I'm happy for you.
I was honestly a little nervous coming into today how I was going to do. And I agree with those numbers. You get a 1.5, I'm going to give you a high five the next time I see you at IBS or JLC, because that's a fantastic number.
All right, friends. As you can see, the house performed beautifully in my blower door test. And ultimately, the true example of that is 2 years later, my house has been crazy comfortable with my family. I think I alluded to it in another video. I've got 2 kids that have asthma, and now that they've been in this house, they've had 0 problems. We all sleep incredibly well in this house. We've all seen a reduction in allergies. I mean, the house is just incredible. I mean, there's definitely something to building a really tight house and insulating it to the levels that I did. I mean, we basically did double code pretty much everywhere in my house for insulation levels. And I got to tell you, it's worth every penny when it comes to comfort. And that's how you should sell it. I would not sell it on energy efficiency or lower energy bills. That's going to be a loser for you as a builder. The way to sell efficiency and durability is comfort and that level of satisfaction that comes from a really well-built house. And so let's talk a few minutes about regrets. I think it's interesting how I went from, I think you noticed, or I may have said it at some point during the videos, I moved literally across the street from a 1970s house that I remodeled to this house. And I expected that even though I was going to be, I don't know, almost 50% bigger on house size, that my electric bills would be about the same. It's interesting that they're not. Even though I built a super efficient house, my electric bills tend to be a little bit higher actually than my old house. And there's a couple reasons for that, but the easy kind of low-hanging fruit is, you know, my old house, all I had was a cable box maybe that was phantom power. At my new house, I've got, what do I have, 7 Sonos amps with built-in zones through my house. I've got a low voltage rack. I've got a Voltex system. I've got a camera system, a security system. I've got all these low voltage things that I never had in my old house that are pulling 400 and some watts of static power 24/7, 365. So that's a big part of that. I also have 2 TVs now where I only had 1 before. And now I've got 3 teenagers where I only had 1 teenager before. So everybody's got phones and laptops and chargers and all these things at this new house. Just reminds me that the way you live makes as much of a difference on energy efficiency as the actual house efficiency, because I know that my hot water heating, my heating and cooling, so much more efficient than what I had before. And you saw my blower door score incredibly much lower than my old house, which was like a 3 something ACH 50. So really what it boils down to is my house has been super comfortable, but my bills haven't really been any lower than my old house. So that's something that you just need to know and keep in the back of your mind. Don't be selling clients that they're going to have a $50 electric bill when you have no idea what they're going to do in their house. I mean, I came home one time and my wife had a space heater at her feet at the computer because she wanted some heat in her feet. And, there's another 1,200 watts of power when she's running a space heater to heat her toes. Those are things that you can't account for in an energy model, and I can't account for as a builder. That's on you as the client to decide that's something you want to do, and my wife did. And what was I going to do? Yell at her for heating her toes up and on a day when it was 20 degrees out? No, I mean, she wanted to do that, so go for it. But those are the things that you can't control, and you're not going to say to your client, well, you're going to have a $50 electric bill. You just simply don't know that's going to be the case. A couple things I do differently. Let's talk about that for a minute. Solar. I always planned on adding solar, and here we are 2 years later. I've yet to do it. I'm going to do it. It's on my bucket list to add solar to this house. I would really like to get it to net zero, and now I know what my annual kilowatt hour usage is. I'm going to do it, but I have yet to do it. I think had I done this all over again, if I do build another house, I think I'm going to plan it and do it during construction. That way I know I'm all set up. I'm not worried about, oh, did I get the conduit in the right spot? No, I'll just put it in and make sure everything's sealed up tight. Everything's working perfectly. And when I move in, boom, it's ready to go. And I'll probably just size the system a little bigger than I need. So worst case scenario, I'm feeding some power back into the grid. A couple other things I mentioned briefly. I think I would do bigger laundry equipment. You know, I did the Miele kind of compact plus size equipment, which means I do a few more loads, and occasionally I have to take some big stuff to a laundromat. I think I would have done a full size front loader set, let's say from an American brand. I think that would have been pretty awesome. Another thing I might have done differently is at the time that I built my house, the biggest generator that Champion made was a 13 kW, and as of the publishing of this video, they now make a 22 kW. You know, hindsight's 2020. I didn't want to get up to that bigger size, but had I opted for that, I think it would have been really nice. And so I think if I build another house again, rather than load shedding and figuring out, you know, what's the smallest generator I can get away with, I think honestly, I would coach you to say, look, what would it take to power the majority of the house so that if we have an outage, there's really not going to be much of a compromise. You might shut off your second story, your kids' areas, yes. But in my house, I've got really just my main HVAC system, all my all my refrigerators and freezers, those kinds of things going. But there's plenty of areas in my house where I don't have it connected, frankly, because I just don't have the capacity, especially when you've got a induction cooktop and you've got an electric range and that sort of thing. So I think if I were to do it again, I would have gone to to the next size up on the Champion scale for a generator. The other thing I would have done had I had the opportunity is I think I would have put a gas line in for my induction cooktop. You know, if it was just me, I would totally be fine with the induction. I think I mentioned on an earlier episode that it's hasn't been my wife's favorite appliance. And had I had a gas line there, she would have made me yank that out and put one in. I think it's probably wise, if you're going to go all electric like I did, to throw a propane line in, throw a gas line in a few places like that where you might need it someday. Something to think about. Anyways, guys, been really fun to review the footage. If you're really interested in seeing all the footage I made, I just looked recently. My playlist over on YouTube is 56 videos deep on the real rebuild. So in these 8 or so episodes, we kind of took the highlights. We took the best of. Stay tuned next year, though. I've got a brand new series we're going to be filming called The Reisinger Build, where I'm going to do a really nice house that's built to a performance spec, maybe one dial down on the performance scale from my house. And we're going to video the process start to finish from ground break all the way to move in, with all the things really thought of to make sure that we get the full story. You know, by the way, the plan as well as my plan are going to be available over on bldrplans.com, which is Builder's First Source plan site set. So if you're interested in actually building my house, you can go over to that website and check it out. And this new project we've got coming out, this will probably start publishing in spring of 2024. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to build that start to finish. And again, that plan will also be available on the BFS home plan library. With that being said, guys, sure appreciate your support out there. I really hope that this has been a series that you've learned something and you'll be able to apply to either your builds or your future personal build. Follow me on TikTok or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.